Okay, I'm gonna throw a lot of cultural and pop culture and historical references at you in this video, just so you know. Just putting that up there out front. There's gonna be a lot of that getting thrown at you for this video because I'm just like, I read the chapter and everything for One Piece for, 1072 and everything with everything that happened with Stussy and with everything with Bonnie and Kuma and all of that and the memories and everything. And I'm sitting there going like, there's a lot of different media that have taken different paths when it comes to dealing with memories and with souls for how they show that. And I kind of wanted to go through and talk a little bit about those in comparison to like what they could end up meaning with One Piece. Um, Also, there's different references, of course, throughout One Piece itself to souls and memories anyway, of course. I mean, good chunks of One Piece are built up on flashbacks and stuff like that. Almost every arc at some point in it has a flashback, whether it's like flashbacks for Luffy when we're learning about him in the East Blue, flashbacks for like all the other Straw Hats as they join, other characters, enemies, friends, allies, random person. We get flashbacks. And I love that. And I love that Oda puts that in there because those are these memories that the characters have that have shaped them. And I think that might be something that he's trying to get at a little bit with what's going on with Kuma and Bonnie right now. That these memories that are sitting there in that giant paw print bubble that are, that those are Kuma's memories that Bonnie's looking at, that, that Kuma used his Nikkyu, no powers, to push out of him, and Vegapunk had them like locked up nice and secure. Probably could a little bit more secure, but a little, fairly secure. And such. And okay, so to Vegapunk's credit, I mean, they're in an exceedingly locked room that's probably has a very hard lock to break. Bonnie was able to get in because of her devil fruit power, which is probably an oversight on Vegapunk's part. But also, this is a room that is within the, the sky dome, whatever, where like the punk records are kept, where it's surrounded by the force field and everything. You have to have certain clearance and whatever to be getting in there anyway. So I guess there's that. So he gets a pass for that. But what I was thinking of was, yeah, these different, it's like the concept that they bring up in the chapter is, the 21 grams experiment, which I mentioned a bit in the other video, and a lot of people are bringing that up in their videos, of course. And of course, the 21-gram experiment I mentioned it was an experiment done by a man called Duncan McDougall in 1901. So it's 122 years old at this point in time. And it was an experiment that he did where he weighed bodies of 6 people before they died. And then he weighed them again, like right after they died. And they lost like 21 grams. And because he wanted to see if you could weigh how much a soul is. And, it wasn't exactly, I mean, like, technically it would be a experiment that could be replicated, but, I mean, it would be a fairly unethical way of doing it of, oh, you're about to die. Let me put you on this scale and we'll weigh you, and then we'll weigh you as you die and see what happens. I'm like, is there any ethical version of how to do that? And I'm like, not really. Not really any ethical way of doing that at all. Not that I can think of, unless you're like literally just like spend like the last day of your life on a scale, but even then it's just like, are you going to die today? I don't know. There's that whole concept because what McDougall was trying to figure out is if you could prove that the soul has weight. Throughout all of human history, I don't know exactly when the concept of a soul first started, but lots of religions around the world in, Middle Eastern and Eastern and, Abrahamic religions with Judaism and Christianity and Islam and, and Buddhism and Hinduism and, take whatever other, Taoism and whatever other various religion. Pretty much every single religion throughout history has had this concept of a soul, of when you die, there has to be something else. And, in that regard, different media's had different variations of it, there's ghost stories that get told every year at Halloween and all types of other times of year where, it's like, oh, there's this, there's a soul that's left here because it's a soul that has unfinished business and they became a ghost. I'll be bringing up Harry Potter later on in the video, and there's all the ghosts that are in Hogwarts and everything. Those are the souls of people that just have not passed on yet, one way or another. And it's, their soul is still there. They're an imprint left on the world of the living. And those, all those ghosts still have the memories of when they were alive. So those memories are preserved. But, and even in One Piece, Oda has, fully explained that, yes, there are souls, we have Brook with the Yomi Yomi no Mi. It's like he exists entirely because of, the soul fruit, or not the soul fruit, but the revive fruit that he's able, that he got an extra life. His soul left his body and came back. Very tragic thing happened beforehand, and then very tragic 50 years of lonely happened afterwards, but his soul came back. And then, you have the Soru no Mi, Big Mom's devil fruit, which could possibly be back in circulation. We don't know yet. That has not been explained because we don't know if she's actually dead yet. But we know because of her devil fruit, we know that there are souls and that there's a devil fruit that allows you to manipulate them. You can take people's souls and then you can create the homies and everything like that, like what she does. And so it's like, that's that concept. That's like stated there in that regard. And, kind of what it is what they were trying to get at in the chapter, I think, is like, how much of you is your memories? And in that regard, it's, Bonnie's like, can you turn my dad back? And Vegapunk's, no, I can't restore him to what he was. That I can't, and I can't tell you why, because I promised Kuma. I'm like, might save your neck if you tell her, and I think she has the right to know why you can't turn her dad back to normal. I would say she, out of everybody else on the entire planet, deserves to know why. Regardless of what Kuma had made you promise, I think Bonnie deserves to know why Vegapunk did that to her father. Why her father allowed Vegapunk to do that. But one of the things is, when it comes to, the memories, Vegapunk wanted to know, I want to find out how much memories weigh. And we never got an answer to that yet in the chapter. We didn't get an answer to that in the chapter. I guess there's a possibility we'll get an answer in the next chapter, and another flashback that we might get between Kuma and Vegapunk, where, it's like, we pushed it, they pushed all the memories out, and then, like, I guess maybe Vegapunk attempted to weigh them. It's not like you could, like, set them down on a scale, I guess, but I don't know. And, it's like, did they weigh them? And then, if Kuma put them back into himself, did he then, have to, if he weighed them again later on, if Kuma made more memories, would they weigh more? I guess is a question that goes into that. But also, I wanted to point out that there are several devil fruits now that have the ability to affect memories. There's, of course, the Hobby no Mi that we got introduced, that's used by Sugar from the Doflamingo family, that we saw used in, the Dressrosa arc and everything, with her being able to, touch someone or an animal or something and turn them into a toy, and then everybody forgets about them except for Sugar. And, that's one way of affecting people's memories. And then when they get turned back, everybody remembers who they are, which is an exceedingly traumatic experience, I would assume, for all the people that, like, had lived on Dressrosa for the last 10 years. We saw how traumatic and everything that was for Rebecca and for so many of the other people that lived there, that completely forgot for, like, going on, almost 10 years in some cases, completely forgot about husbands, wives, children, parents, best friends, whatever, completely forgot about them because of what Sugar did. And we saw that very blatantly with what happened with Rebecca and Kyros, with how, when Sugar is knocked out by Usopp and the Tontaras, that, she's in the middle of the Cordia Coliseum, fighting along Sabo, and she falls to her knees and she just starts crying, because at that moment she's having all of these memories rush back to her that for the last 10 years of her life, she had these memories of, it had just been her and her mother when she was a kid. And then, the tin soldier showed up and he stayed with her after her mother died and he did everything he could to protect her. And then she has this moment where she's just like, it's all those memories flooding back. And Sabo went through a very similar thing with what happened when he had forgotten about Luffy and Ace. And I'd say Sabo had a bit more of an extreme reaction to it, given the fact that it was complete and utter amnesia as opposed to just forgetting about one person, but still a traumatic experience. And we saw just how much those memories flooding forth made Rebecca feel, like how emotional that made her in that regard. And with Kuma, supposedly what happened was he used his Nikkyu no Mi to push all of his memories out of him. Now the question is there a way of copying it and then like putting the other memories back into himself so he has certain memories, or how much of that was replaced by coding that Vegapunk made and then put into him as changing him into the PX0 over however much amount of time that took? And how much of it was like, like the programming to protect the Thousand Sunny and programming to, find a way to help the Straw Hats and other stuff like that. Like how much of that was programmed into Kuma because he asked Vegapunk to do that because he knew that Luffy was Dragon's son. And he's like, I need to help this crew along because they have Robin and they have, Frankie and, however many of the Straw Hats Kuma knew about at that time. But he's like, I need to help this crew along because they're Luffy's, they're Dragon's son. Dragon's son is their captain, and I need to help them along. And then, that results in what happens at Thriller Bark, and then what happens, of course, in Sabaody when he separates all of them so they can all get stronger in these different places, which, in the long run helped the Straw Hats, but in the short run was exceedingly traumatic for all of them. And the readers, yes, in the short run, very traumatic for all of us. You're just like, what the heck happened? And then Luffy goes flying and okay, Luffy survived. Okay, everybody else survived. Okay, we're good. Where the heck did they all end up? But one of the, things that go into that are, we saw how traumatic it was for, Rebecca and everybody else that was on Dressrosa that lost their memories of, loved ones or friends or whatever, and then had them come back when Sugar got knocked out. We didn't really see a whole lot of this with the Straw Hats. We know that Usopp didn't want to forget about Luffy, and that's why he was, he unlocked observation hockey in order to, stop Sugar from turning Luffy into a toy the second time around and such. We know that Robin got turned into a toy, but we never really got a payoff for that. Or not as entirely as a payoff, because, Robin got turned into, the ragdoll toy, and then, she's like that way for, at the most an hour, at the least, 10, 15 minutes, however long it takes for Usopp and the Tontadas to eventually get Sugar knocked out. And, we get, Sugar gets knocked out, and then Robin goes, back to being Robin. And I don't remember if we ever got an instant where, any of the Straw Hats that had been on the island look at Robin and, we completely forgot about our interactions with you. We are sorry. Or even, when they met back up with Brooke and Nami and Chopper and stuff like that on, on Zoe, we didn't get a moment where Robin or Nami runs up to Robin, because out of all the ones that were there, well, I mean, all three of them there would probably hug Robin. Yeah, Brooke would hug Robin, Chopper and Nami would definitely hug Robin. They've done it before. But, all of them would run up and be like, why did we forget about Robin? We never got that answer. So I'm hoping eventually that gets a payoff down the line. I wish. I really hope it does, because it never happened, as far as I'm aware. But then other ones that, of course, affect memories. We have the Memo no Mi that was, that Pudding uses. That is, exceedingly useful. She can edit people's memories. We see her use it on Reiju, of course, with pulling the memories out of Reiju's head and then editing them and putting in the fake memories, and then that knocks Reiju out for however long of time. And then we also see it has some form of battle capabilities, and the fact that Pudding can use her, it's called Memories Fill Flashback, and we see her use this when her and Chiffon and Sanji are going through the seducing woods in order to get off of Whole Cake Island again, then head to Cacao Island. And we see, pudding activates her power, and it makes these like light ropes or whatever that connect to a bunch of the different homies. And then she makes them, have a flashback of, remember something from when they were the soul of the human or the whatever person their, soul piece came from before they, became a homie. Before Big Mom took it and they became homies. And we see that. And so that implies that the souls remember stuff. But it also implies that unless it's activated by like Pudding's devil fruit, they don't really remember. Like, I have a theory that the little, I think it's called Nitro, the little jelly, whatever, slime, homie that sits on Pudding's shoulder all the time, that, it kind of reminds me of Beji, that it's, it's got like the hat that Beji wears and it's got like the cigar and everything. My thought is that the part of the soul that's in that either came from Beji or from some other, I guess whatever mafia type person ended up there at some point in time, and then it just happens to be around Pudding, that it became one of Pudding's personal homies along with Arabian, that's her rug. And I guess whatever other homies live in her room. But, that doesn't mean that it has a memory of being Beji's soul at any point in time. I would assume that Beji and his crew still have to pay the tax for living in Totland, just like everybody else does. We never get an answer, though, if any of, like, Big Mom's, like, children or spouses of children are, like, exempt from that rule. Because I would think that would be, like, a good way of putting it, because, like, if she has to keep taking life from her children, that's going to slowly make her children die faster, which really wouldn't help her plans, necessarily. So her children may be immune from that. For the most part, we saw her take souls, of course, from two of her children. Mascotte and then Opera. I know she took souls from both of them. Drained their souls at one point in the stories. But both of them while she was on a hunger rampage. But, we know that Pudding can affect people's memories and everything. And, now she's been captured by Blackbeard and stuff, but her devil fruit is directly related to memories. And then now we have the Niku no Mi that can now very much affect people's memories. And the fact that it can allow Kuma to, at the very least, affect his own memories by, repelling or pushing all of his memories out of his own body and into one of his, paw balloons that he does when he does, like, his Ursa shock or any of his other powers that he uses for, rapid fire, air paws or whatever that he does. There's those moments. That is currently sitting in Vegapunk's locked up room. No longer locked. But there's, so he can at least do that. He could possibly do the same thing with other people's memories, because he did the same thing with, like, Luffy's pain and exhaustion when they were on Thriller Bark. So that's there. But, it's like, how much of that, those memories are there, and unless they get, like, the real Kuma's body back, I don't know if they would be able to then put all of those memories back into it. And even if they did, I made the comment in the video where I talked about this originally. That was, the Seraphim Kuma, the S-Bear is on the island, and if they get the Seraphim, or at the very least that one, back under their control, then since it does have Kuma's devil fruit with the green blood, it can use the devil fruit. It could push those memories back, from, the Kuma's memories into itself. And then it would have then Kuma's memories. And I made the comment that if that was the case, then it would probably, know who Bonnie is and then want to protect Bonnie. Don't know if it would necessarily override its initial programming of being a Seraphim and having to serve, like, the hierarchy, the Gorosei and Vegapunk and the satellites and Sentomaru and then whoever has an authority chip. But, you give Bonnie an authority chip and she's fine. It should listen to her and it would want to protect her anyway. But, the Seraphim seem to have some bit of a will of their own and whatever, or some bit of personality. They still have to follow orders, but, that might affect it quite a bit. So I wanted to point those out. But there's a couple of other things throughout One Piece that, of course, deal with memories. One thing I wanted to point out is Memories is actually the name of the first One Piece ending that they had way back in season 1 for the anime. It's, I think, for the first 30 episodes, and I think like every so often, like that same, like that same music or that same ending or so will end up getting used in the show itself, or as like another, um, you know, as another ending somewhere along the lines where they redo it or whatever. I think it got used a couple of other times. Where they bring it back into the show. Link for that will be in the description, or at least for one of the links will be in the description. The other thing I wanted to point out is the Jirma's an emotionless excursion. That's the cover story, of course, going right now, has literally dived into flashbacks, into memories, with us finding out about Mads and everything. So there's that. Several of the other cover stories technically qualify as flashbacks because they are taking place in the past of the current part of the story, because they don't always run exactly concurrent, but they take place a little bit in the past. As I pointed out, there's flashbacks that happen in One Piece anyway. And they give us a whole bunch of backstory for the characters and stuff like that. And then I also wanted to point out with, right now there's the new One Piece video game, One Piece Odyssey, that came out. Admittedly, I actually like the graphics. I think they actually look pretty good, or they don't bother me. I think I like the designs that they came up with for how they have the straw hats. I like the battle system that they came up with. It's, the turn-based battle system. But within that, they're the Memorias or whatever cubes that they have that is the part of the game that I have the biggest issue with. I have not played the game, but I've watched demos of the game, and I'm like, oh god, it's one of those where you get to a certain point, and then all of your skills, because the girl with like the short bob haircut like touches all of the straw hats, or most of the straw hats, and then they all forget how to use all of their skills that they've learned for like 2 years and everything, and they don't know how to use, like, Zoro can't use a sword, not Luffy doesn't know how to stretch, Usopp doesn't know how to use his sniper abilities, Nami doesn't know how to use her climb attack and whatever. Sanji doesn't know how to kick, even though that's a general thing that most humans know how to do. They don't remember how to use this, how to do that, which is, I don't like that they did that, but that's the game system that they came up with. But then they have all of the cubes that, like, you have to go around and find the cubes, and then it helps you remember, new attacks and moves and stuff like that as well. So that was, that's a big part of that game. But then I wanted to go into like how memories have been used in other media, because kind of what they're getting at with One Piece right now is, this weight of a soul. Yes, the soul within One Piece may have weight, but they've already established that, of course, souls exist in One Piece, and of course memories exist in One Piece, because anyone can remember something, and that's a memory, so that's there. But kind of what I think they're getting at is how much of your memories can affect your soul, and how much of your memories and your soul determine who you are. And, one of the things that I wanted to point out is Harry Potter, hence shirt. And I pulled out one of my Harry Potter wands that is, this is Fleur's wand, Fleur Delacour, Fleur Weasley, Née Delacour wand. I love her wand, it's so pretty. If I remember, it's like Vela Hair's the core, but I don't remember what the wood was, but it's very pretty. But in Harry Potter, there's of course the pensive, which is introduced in book 4 and movie 4 in Goblet of Fire, where we see Dumbledore using the pensive to, pull out his memories, and then he puts them in the pensive and he can remember them and like interact with them more. Because Harry just adjust those memories a little bit. There we go. Harry falls into Dumbledore's memories of one of the trials, and of course that's where he learns some additional information. And then of course in book 6, Half-Blood Prince, Harry and Dumbledore go through all of these different memories of, Dumbledore when he first met Tom Riddle, Slughorn interacting with Tom Riddle, both the fake memory and the real memory. In the books, there's a few other memories. There's memories about a house elf and memories about like the matron of the orphanage that Tom lived in. I just like using the wand as a pointing stick because it's fun. And then, of course, in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, in the part 2 for the movie, and then of course for the book, there's, one of the last chapters is of course The Prince's Tale, which I think that's the name of the chapter, where we find out everything about, Snape, about all of his memories that, he gives Harry right before he dies. And yes, I still consider Snape a villain. And for reference, I also consider Dumbledore a villain, considering the fact that he allowed Harry to stay in an abusive household when he could have very much lived in a much more safe and loving household with either the Weasleys or with Sirius had he been given a fair trial. So that's what I have there. Let him go live with McGonagall. She'd give any Death Eater that tried to show up and hurt Harry a damn good fight. But with, Snape, we get all of the memories of like him growing up with Lily and everything like that. So we get all of those memories. And then even, I have not read it, but going into the Cursed Child, even with the Cursed Child, there's all of, that involves a lot of time travel, which involves, affecting history, which technically messes with people's memories. So there's that. But going into some other stuff for media, one thing I wanted to point out that is kind of like a collective version of like a pensive or something along those lines is Facebook. And so there's this thing that you can get on Facebook that is a book that they will print up for you that you can go through your timeline and pick up all of these different pictures and everything like that. And then they will send you a book. I'm not vain enough to have a book that has me on the cover. This is my mom's that she got with me and Rainey on the cover. But, it's filled with pictures of stuff, from stuff throughout from the time that she's been on Facebook, stuff with my nieces and nephews, stuff with, her family and my, all that types of stuff. And, this has some weight to it. And for reference, it definitely weighs more than 21 grams. I don't know how much 21 grams weighs, but it's definitely less than this. But so when it, your memories have weight, and a lot of people state like, oh, I've been weighed down by my memories because of trauma that's in them and stuff like that. And I wanted to point out that yes, Facebook is kind of very similar to like a collective pensive of society and everything, and YouTube kind of falls into that as well, as does Instagram and any other social media platform and stuff like that, where people put different their own memories in there. You have your timeline on Facebook and everything. And then I also wanted to point out that kind of goes with that, just for a funny side of things, there's America's Funniest Home Videos, or America's Home Videos, Funniest Videos, or whatever you want to call it. That was originally hosted, I believe, was Bob Saget. So rest in peace, Bob Saget. I loved you on Full House, and you're also an amazing comedian. But also subsequently has so many other hosts. But like, all of the videos that they show there are people's memories of funny things that happened to them or happened to someone else that they know. And then, so there's that. And, as I said, YouTube also has a lot of that, as does Facebook, as have, insert whatever else has all of that stuff. Of, memories that we have as a society that shows that, yes, memories when put to a physical object, a book, pictures, videos, whatever, that it does have weight, or it can have weight, in one way or another. And then, I also just wanted to point out a few other small bits here that I just kind of thought of when I was thinking of different things that had to do with like memories. So there's the musical Cats by Andrew Lloyd Webber. I have never watched it. I have never watched any of the movies. I have not seen the new live action one with the weird animation, and I've never seen the play, and I never intend to. beyond, for some reason, just watching cats to either be horrified or laugh at it the entire time. I don't know. I love Andrew Lloyd Webber. I love a fair amount of his other musicals, but that's not one that holds my interest. But there's the song Memories in it. That is kind of one of the, that's like one of the big musical numbers in it. And that's kind of one of the ones that gets sung a lot outside of the musical. So there's Memories. I found a version of it and it's in the link below if you want to listen to it, if you've never heard it. But then I also wanted to reference another song that kind of came into my mind a lot while I was going through parts of this. And so there's the movie Disenchanted, which is the sequel that came out last year to Enchanted, which was way back in the early to mid 2000s, with Amy Adams and Patrick Dempsey and Idina Menzel and all of that. And this one is the sequel, and it takes place like 15 or 12 or whatever years later, and the little girl, Morgan's all grown up and in high school and everything, and there's of course a moment in it because spoilers, I guess. The whole scene is kind of a spoiler, but spoilers. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. It's a great movie, and they did a great job with it. The music in it is amazing. The costumes are great. The story can pull at your heartstrings, or just make you laugh because it's really funny because you see Patrick Dempsey attempting to go and have to pretend to fight a dragon, which is just funny, and try to stop a giant, which that whole bit is funny. But Giselle is slowly turning into like this evil stepmother character. And her stepdaughter, Morgan, has to figure out a way to stop it. And she ends up in the fairy tale world of Andalasia, where she ends up, of course, seeing Nancy and Edward, or Nancy and the prince, can't remember his name, finds them, of course. It's like they're her aunt and uncle at this point in time, godparents, whatever, pseudo aunt and uncle or whatever. So it's not like she hasn't seen them for 12 years or whatever, but they're part of her life, and she ends up there, and they have to find this thing that is called a memory tree because they need to fix Giselle's memories because she's being taken over by the twisted, fairy, evil stepmother alter ego. And they go to where Giselle's memory tree is, which is supposed to be the most, the fullest and the biggest or whatever in Andalasia. It's assuming everybody has a memory tree somewhere. This one happens to be Giselle's that they go to. I tried finding pictures of it. I could not. I'm sorry. Really wanted to, but I couldn't. But it's supposed to be this tree that holds, it kind of looks a lot like a weeping willow tree that would be like in like a swampland or whatever, like one of the fairy tale trees. And it like has all these different orbs on it that hold memories, and as Morgan touches them, they light up because not only are they Giselle's memories, a lot of them are also Morgan's memories because she is a big part of them as well, because she is a big part of Giselle's life. She is Giselle's daughter. And of course, because you have Idina Menzel in a movie that is done by Disney, and she is technically playing a fairy tale queen. Well, not technically. She is playing a fairy tale queen at that point in time, and we never got the chance to hear her sing in the original. Sadly, she, of course, sings. And she sings a song that's called Love Power, and I love the song. Again, link for the scene for the song is in the description below. It's a great song. It goes from animated into live action, and it's great, and it's fun, and I love it. Played it several times while I'm making notes for this video, and while I'm getting set up and everything. Love the song. I love almost anything Idina Menzel sings. What can I say? I loved her as Elsa. I love her in this. I would love it if they ever did actually made Wicked into an actual movie. I would love that. I don't care if she's too old to play Elphaba. Let her play Elphaba. I don't care. And get Kristen Chenoweth in there to play Glinda. Please do that. I would love that. But, so there's that song that shows what the power of memories contain. And then also in other variations of, in a different media, or a different movie that is called Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, which came out in 2004, that stars Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet, and I don't remember who else is in the movie. I think Mark Ruffalo is in the movie, in all honesty, but I don't remember who else is in the movie. But the whole concept of the movie is that, Jim Carrey's character falls in love with Kate Winslet's character, and then eventually they have like this horrible breakup, and he wants to forget her, so he goes to this company that allows you to, you know, forget someone from your mind. You know, they'll erase the person from your memory. And, you know, so part of the movie is, you know, him forgetting everything, and then he finds her again, and it's kind of like this looped thing where they still find each other again and again. But, you know, he forgets her, and then he goes and finds her again, and she had forgotten him by doing the same thing. It's actually a really good movie, and it's been a long time since I've watched it. I should probably watch it again because I really like Jim Carrey, and that's a great, you know, much more of a dramatic role that he does in that, and he does an amazing job in the movie. So there's that, and there's like the memory wipe machine there that shows you how powerful memories can be and how precious they can be. But the last thing that I wanted to leave with on this video, and it already ended up being a little longer than I wanted, but the last thing I wanted to end with on this video, you got me ranting about Disney. This was not a good idea. What can I say? So many things in my life come back to Disney. So many things in my brain will track me back to Disney. What can I say? It happens. But this one technically also leads me back to Disney because it involves Marvel. So, the last thing I wanted to leave with in this video is this concept that is called the Ship of Theseus, because I'm laying in bed last night and I was just like, this idea popped into my head of kind of this representation of what's going on with Kuma, where the Kuma that Bonnie knew, that was her father, that was the king of, you know, the Sorbet Kingdom, that was a member of the Revolution Army. Whether or not Bonnie knew that, we don't know. But that was Bartholomew Kuma, that is this man that Bonnie loved, that was her father and everything, that Vegapunk respected, that Dragon respected, that was Dragon and Ivankov's friend, that Sabo grew up around and everything, and thought that Kuma was so wonderful and everything. That Kuma is technically gone. All of the memories, supposedly, that made up that Kuma are sitting in that bubble. And now Kuma has been turned into a pacifista. He was turned into the PX0 that is the basis for all the other pacifistas, and then eventually for the Seraphim. In that regard, that is a biological being that has also had mechanical things added into it over a large amount of time, or that were originally built into it as it was growing, in the case of probably what happened with the Seraphim. And what happened with Kuma was, you know, he starts out as Kuma, and as he goes through and as he works with Vegapunk, he eventually gets turned into a PX0. And while he still technically could be Bartholomew Kuma, he's not. And the Ship of Theseus, which if anybody has watched WandaVision, you are familiar with this. There's other variations where they mention the Ship of Theseus. I think WandaVision kind of brought that a little bit more into the zeitgeist, a little bit more now than it has been in a long time. But the Ship of Theseus is this classical philosophical thought experiment that is an object simply the sum of the specific parts that compose it. And if those parts are gradually replaced, is it still the same object? So kind of the story is Theseus sails the world in his famous ship. And if you're wondering for purposes, Theseus is a Greek hero. He was a demigod, I believe, that was a son of Poseidon. And it's Theseus that slayed the Minotaur, if you're wondering where that mythological reference comes from. Theseus is one that slayed the Minotaur and everything in the labyrinth. That was Theseus, demigod, son of Poseidon. And it's the ship sails the world, and by the time the voyage is finished, every single part of the ship has been replaced. You know, every single plank of wood, every single nail, every single banister, every single, you know, even the sails and the mast and everything have been replaced by the time it returns to the original port that it's left. So the question is it still the same ship? Or is it a completely different ship? And it's that thought experience of like, we as humans are the sum of our own parts. We are the sum of all of the memories that we've had, all of the people that have been around us, all the experiences we've had, and everything have all shaped us. Same thing happens to any other character in any means of fiction throughout all of history. Everything that those characters turn into is based off of the sum of the experiences that they go through in their general stories, in their own specific stories, via, whatever background and experiences they have. Same thing happens with One Piece. Every single member of the Straw Hats, every single character in One Piece, all the way down to the most insignificant, to the most insignificant background character that doesn't even have a name. Well, to us doesn't have a name. Oda might know who they are, but to the most insignificant black background character, have memories that have shaped them. And there's the question of, and I think this is posed in WandaVision, because there ends up being two visions in WandaVision. One is the vision that has all of the memories of the Vision that had been through all of everything that happened in Avengers, Age of Ultron, and Civil War, and then into Infinity War and everything, and that died. And then in WandaVision, Wanda kind of reconstructs him using her own power through everything that happens with WandaVision. Spoilers in there, but then there ends up being a different Vision that is the White Vision, that is made up of the parts that had made up the original Vision, but it does not have the original Vision's memories. So the question that therein lies, and the two visions state this concept to each other when they're interacting with each other, of which one of them is the real Vision. The Vision that has all of the memories of the original Vision, that remembers everything that happened, or this Vision that has the body of Vision, but does not have any of the memories that the original one had. And it's like, which one is the real Vision? Or is neither the real Vision? Or are both the real Vision? Or if they would put the memories from the memories that come from the original Vision into the body of the newer Vision, would that be Vision? And it's, is it the shape and the design of the ship that makes it what it is? Or is it all of the rot and all of the wear and tear that goes on the ship during the journey and everything? And even if it is replaced, as long as the crew's memory of the ship is the same, it's still the same ship. And it's like, Kuma has gone through so much already that we've seen in the series and everything, and now we're learning more about what he's been through and everything, with Kuma and Vegapunk and Bonnie and all of these flashbacks and everything, that it results in us figuring out that if those memories are taken from Kuma and put into the Seraphim Kuma, or even if they're returned to the body that is the PX-0 that is currently climbing the red line, trying to get his way up to, Marie Joie, however that goes, is that going to be the same Kuma that had been Bonnie's father no matter what happened? And the answer is no. Or at least in my opinion, the answer is no. And probably even by Vegapunk's opinion and by Kuma's opinion of, no, I would not be the same Kuma that I once was. I would not be the same Kuma that had been Bonnie's father, that had been the Sorbet Kingdom's king, that had been Dragon's friend and, Ivankov's friend and this member of the Revolutionary Army. I would not be the same Kuma. I would be a different Kuma, because I'm not physically the same Kuma I was. My body's different. I'm now a cyborg and everything, and while I may still have access to those memories, I'm not the same. Same thing happens if you put those memories into the Seraphim, into the S-Bear. It may still look like Kuma to a degree, and it may still have Kuma's powers because of the green blood, and now it may have Kuma's memories, but it's not going to be the same Kuma. It's not going to be the same Kuma that is Bonnie's father. It may still know exactly who she is and have all the same memories, but Bonnie will never see that as her father again. Bonnie will never be able to technically forgive Vegapunk for what happened to her dad, even if he tells her what happened and explains it to her. She's probably still never going to 100% forgive him for it. She may tolerate it once she finds out why, and if she finds out what Vegapunk intends to do with Kuma's memories, she may be able to at least somewhat move on, or at least get to have peace with it or something, even if she gets to still have a piece of her father with her, with either his memories going somewhere that she can control, or at least have by her side in the case of putting it into a new Kuma or putting it into the S-Bear or whatever. That's my thought. And it's how much of us are these flesh and bone bodies that we live in, that we have the ability to replace, and the fact that we can get artificial limbs, we can have, plastic surgery, we can have, joint surgery and stuff like that. My mom's had both of her knees replaced. I've had family members that have had to have, shoulders replaced, or elbows, or joints, or whatever else that gets replaced over the years. I had an uncle that had a glass eye. Everybody, you can fix and stuff like that. It's like, there's the saying that, like, I think it's like every 8 years, every single cell in your body has been regenerated and replaced since, like 8 years ago. So still, in that regards, I'm 30 years old. I'm going to be 31 years old in April. By the logic of the ship of Theseus, this is not the same body, molecule by molecule, cell by cell, necessarily, that was the same body I was born into almost 31 years ago. And my body's gone through so many, cells replacing each other and everything like that over the years. Even if I still look the same, my genetics are still the same, but all of my memories are what actually determine who I am. And our memories are what make us who we are. And yes, I went a lot more metaphysical in this than I wanted to, and I'm sorry for anybody that annoys, but that's what I wanted to say. That it's Kuma's memories can help determine who he is, and they can affect it. And depending on what Kuma and Bonnie and Vegapunk end up doing with those memories will determine part of what happens for the rest of the story. So we'll see what happens there. That's what I have. Video ended up being a bit longer than I wanted, so sorry. But I thank you for listening, or I thank you for watching, for whoever actually listened all the way through. I appreciate it very much, listening to my ramblings about Disney and Harry Potter, and take your pick. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. And please listen to the music videos that I tagged in the links below. They're all very good. So, bye.